I hate kids.
Hello everybody, my name is Maher Mohammedan. Oh right, October 31st no longer exists. How am I supposed to review anything spooky related when Spooky Month is gone? What am I supposed to do now? Hello everybody, my name is Maher Mohammedan, and it's been a while, hasn't it? If you're curious as to how I put out the fire, you know some things are best left unanswered. You know, it is a shame that my current condition prevents me from properly reviewing things though. Hey, wait a second! I have a backlog of many reviews I made just in case a situation like this happens. You know, just in case, gotta be prepared. If you're watching this, then that means I did something incredibly stupid and now I have no way to review something. Fortunately for you, you're in the right place. Let me just... That'll do! For those who don't know, Child's Play 2 is a sequel to the 1988 film Child's Play, once again written by Don Mancini, produced by David Kirshner, and directed by the late John LaFia. The movie started production in 1989, but was temporarily put on hold when the company who owned the rights to the Child's Play movies, United Artists, were getting bought out by Quintex. Quintex's management at the time planned to ban United Artists from making any more horror movies due to think that horror is not a good image for their company. So with some convincing from Steven Spielberg of all people, Universal picked up the rights to the series and has been producing Chucky media ever since. Their channels Syfy and USA Network are even the networks who picked up the Chucky TV series.
Killing people. The fuck?
MGM still owns the rights to the first movie, however. This would allow them to make the 2019 reboot without the involvement of Universal or any of the original people who worked on Chucky. It's also why whenever you see them promoting Child's Play movies on social media or online, they always reference the second movie onwards, never the first movie. If you ever wondered why, that's why. With Universal helming the sequel, the movie was released on November 9th, 1990, and was another huge success. So successful that most people consider it to be the best film out of the septology. But is this true though? Well, that's what I'm here to find out. So the plot is relatively pretty simple. PlayPals, the company behind the Good Guy dolls, found and rebuilt the burnt Chucky doll 2 years after the events of the first movie. This is to assure stockholders that the whole killer doll thing was fake and just a rumor. See, the doll's completely normal. Just ignore the red eyes, lightning, and the dead guy. On the flip side, Andy is now in foster care due to his mother being taken to a psych ward for backing him up on Chucky's existence. His current foster parents are Phil and Joanne Simpson, with his foster sister being Kyle. Chucky manages to figure out where Andy is located due to poor security and gets a man to drive him to the Simpson house before killing him. He then switches places with another good guy doll already in the house. Rip Tommy, you were too good for this world. The next night, Chucky reveals himself after messing with Andy the entire day and tries to switch his soul into his body before Kyle ruins things. One small discourse at school later, and Phil has had it with Andy and really wants him to leave. So naturally, Chucky kills him by breaking his neck. How's it hanging, Phil? Joanne, heartbroken, finally sends Andy to foster care, and Chucky proceeds to kill her, then take Kyle as hostage so she can drive him to Andy. Remember when Chucky had people drive him to places because he was a doll and couldn't drive him on his own? Sure, it would be funny if a future sequel would have him drive by himself and kill Taylor Swift. We'll talk about the seed one day, I promise. Anyway, some shenanigans later, and Chucky has finally had Andy all to himself. And, wow, he actually completes the chant. But, why is he bleeding? And why is he not an Andy? And, oh, it took him too long, so he's trapped in there now. Oh, is he? Hey, MSauce, Mad here. You see, when you look between the first and second movie, it's very obvious that less time took place in the second movie than it did in the first. In the first, I want to say at least 3 days took place, approaching 4, and yet Chucky was apparently still a doll and still had a few hours left in him before he becomes human. Yet in the second movie, it seemed like only 2 days passed, but yet Chucky's trapped? He doesn't even look that different. In the first movie, look at him. He had a receding hairline. He had a 5 o'clock shadow. He had bags. In the second movie, where's the bags? But maybe he was never trapped. Maybe because his body was new, his rules of how the voodoo worked were reset. instead of just doing it on Andy again and expecting it to work, it wouldn't work. It never could have. In the rules, it stated you need to tell the first person your true name to. And while yes, he did do that in the first movie, this is a new body. The rules were reset. He needs to do it again. And this is proven in the third movie with how Chucky says this.
I got a new body, and I ain't told anyone about my little secret.
What's the difference between this new body and this new body? So I'm inclined to believe that in order for it to have actually worked, he just needs to go up to Andy and say, oh yeah, by the way, I'm Charles Lee Ray. You know that last time? I'm gonna tell you again. But it's just a theory. A pretty cool theory, might I add. I found on CBR. Seems like the person credited for making this is, hey, wait a second! Anyway, Chucky, now furious, tries to flat out kill Andy and a chase ensues. To make a long story short, he gets stapled to a board, I don't even want to know what happened in there. He rolls himself to Andy, gets soaked in molten plastic, fed a tube of compressed air, and has a mind blown. And now Chucky's finally dead. Well, until the third movie. And that is Child's Play 2. I feel like I say this in every episode I make, but yeah, this was super compressed. For God's sake, I compressed the entire school scene into a singular sentence. So yeah, I highly recommend you watch the movie yourself to form your own opinion. But this is only the beginning. Now it's time to go more in depth and take a proper look at this film. And by proper look, I mean, let's rate the pros and cons. Before we talk about the pros or cons, I think we should talk about the puppetry, because my god is it impressive. So the first movie, right? Very impressive, especially for its time, but now 2 years later on a slightly bigger budget, was very kind to the crew. Chucky now has double the screen time, so you can see him doing a lot more than the last movie. And overall, I think this really does show how much of an improvement this movie is over the last one. He's interacting with more objects than he was in the last movie. He's attacking people more often, and they aren't cutting away or doing them at angles where you can't see his full body. Heck, even his facial expressions are more expressive, even if the lip sync can be improved. I think the best way to describe or really show the improvements made to this movie compared to the first is just to show how in the first movie there were specific scenes where an actor came in to play Chucky, usually in shots like these. But in this movie, those scenes are mostly gone. An actor wasn't used, and if he was, I think it was only in this scene. The rest of the movie was just the doll, it was just the animatronic. And my god, is that impressive? So overall, there were many improvements. Though there was a cutback. As the first movie went on, you visually see Chucky becoming more human through stuff like the skin looking more fleshy, giving him bags under his eyes, and the receding hairline. I mentioned this in the M-Sauce bit. However, in this movie, it's mostly gone. Any sense of Chucky's time limit being conveyed through a bloody nose. I understand why they did this. Yes, the second movie got a bigger budget, but it wasn't that big. Plus, there is more to a movie besides Chucky that requires money, so managing what they should spend it on makes sense overall, and I think Chucky's appearance doesn't really affect the movie too much. Why spend so much money changing his design over the course of the movie when you can instead spend it on, let's say, sets, or reshoots, or just a singular design that can look its best. Which, hey, people tend to say that this Chucky is the best looking design out of the entire series, so they must have done something right. Though this would mark an aspect of the series being lost, that being that Chucky would turn more human as time goes on. He wouldn't always look like a doll, eventually he'll become, like, human, but just more of like a midget, if that makes any sense. But this is mostly just a me issue, it doesn't really affect the plot at all. Hey, I hate to chime in on Past Me, but I just gotta mention this. Season 3 Part 1 just finished airing, and in the third episode, it establishes that Chucky is now aging again due to his voodoo powers leaving him, due to events that happened in Season 2. So technically, the aging stuff that Past Me talked about how it's never coming back, basically came back. Though instead of Chucky slowly becoming human, it's more so, Chucky is slowly dying. But yeah, I just find that funny. Anyway, back to you, Past Me. And that's about it on the puppetry. Now it's on to the pros. First things first, the puppetry is really good, but I can guess why I'm not going to go more into it. Another pro is the music. I think it should be mandatory that anyone who watches this movie needs to get good surround sound or have headphones on because the music is so lively and amazing. It uses a live orchestra with mostly classical instruments, which can sound absolutely beautiful while also making you feel uneasy at the same time. This music can carry the movie's quote-unquote scary scenes by having the music get louder and having notes drag on more as it builds suspense, as well as replacing sound effects with music through some Mickey Mousing, which I think is way better than if the music was just quiet with only random sounds in the real world. You can almost get lost into the music, which makes the parts where Chucky finally attacks catch you off guard. It's really nice. I wouldn't mind if there was like a live concert just to play Chucky songs, particularly from the second movie, because I feel like you can tell there was a lot of time and effort put into it, and I think just having it be in a live concert like Sonic Symphony would just be really fun and amazing. Another pro is the set design and how things were shot. The movie is almost viewed through the POV of a child by having the camera be mostly at low angles, or around be the height of a child, to invoke the feeling of being small. Use of small decisions like having certain things or objects appear big on screen, like this telephone, once again reinforcing how small you are as a child and how little power you truly have in a situation like this. The movie's atmosphere is just amazing and oozes personality. Speaking of personality, the Good Guy Factory. It's filled with so much color and all these working parts to make an in-universe Good Guy doll, and it's super over-engineered, but god do I love it anyway. Also, side note, but I love how in every other movie, including the first one, the Good Guy box has a clear plastic thing on the front, so you can see the doll inside. But in this movie, and only this movie, the plastic thing is gone, and all there is just a regular box with a picture of the doll, because it would be way too expensive to make multiple real Good Guy dolls inside boxes and stack them. I just find that funny. Another pro I have is Andy and Kyle's dynamic. Nearly every character in this movie is a bit of a prick to Andy, so it's nice that Kyle at least gives him the time of day. Obviously she isn't thrilled about him at the beginning and teases him a lot, but it's way more of a sibling bond type of thing, and they do grow to care for each other as the movie goes on. It's nice to see. Even nicer when you learn that how in real life, Alex Vincent and Christina Lees, the actors for Andy and Kyle, had a blast on set and even felt like real siblings, which is awesome. And it's also nice how this bond continues as the series goes on, mostly in the TV show, because obviously the characters kind of get phased out as the movies go on. Honestly, the acting in general I have to give props to. Alex in the first movie was already a pretty good actor, especially for being 6, and he's improved at acting even more at age 8. It's really great to see, and Christina's Kyle has a lot of good moments as well. Just like her attitude and the way she just acts in the movie, I really like it, and I kind of wish we had more moments of her in the movie, since when you watch it, you really realize how little she actually appears, and it's such a shame. I also like the increase of Chucky we get. The first movie uses him briefly, like he's not there for 50% of the movie, and while his presence does increase after he drops the whole being a toy stick, he still isn't used to his fullest potential. Now, Child's Play 2, this dude is everywhere, and we get to see him probably set up traps or kill people like the first film, where it's mostly off-screen setups and maybe his arm is seen. The movie really is just taking everything that the first movie did and improving / expanding upon it, which is really something that every sequel should strive to be. Though there are a few tiny cons I have, so let's get those over with. First things first. Man, are the adults here just the worst? I understand the need to have some people not believe in Andy, but the spitefulness in this movie is almost laughable. Like, Andy's teacher just casually locks Andy in her classroom for a prolonged period of time. That's gotta be a fire hazard. And this is all because he wrote one provocative note. Just one. I'm almost shocked she didn't beat him with a yardstick. I know she has one, because Chucky gets a hold of one in that classroom. But even then, some characters like her are kind of excusable in a way, mostly due to the limited screen time they have. My main issue is the foster parents, Phil and Joanne Simpson. It's not even their fault, it's more so that they seem underdeveloped. Phil almost seems like he doesn't want to have foster kids at all. Like, he doesn't take the time to properly childproof his house, obviously, nor is he that good at interacting with kids in general, so it makes you wonder why he and his wife still do this. And I can understand him getting iffy about Andy with stuff like getting in trouble at school, or Andy screaming about Chucky or holding an electric knife, but like, this man is talking out loud in the kitchen with Joanne about how he doesn't like Andy on the literal second day of him being there. I know due to the glass figurine breaking, but even then, they didn't know who did it. It could have been Kyle for all they know. I mean, we know who did it, but they don't, and it's understandable. But like, Joanne was with Andy in his room. She was singing him to sleep. I'm honestly shocked she didn't bring that up to Phil as a reason as to how Andy couldn't have been the one to break it. It just doesn't make any sense. You also have Phil complaining anytime you see him on screen. It brings up what I mentioned earlier about how he seems like he doesn't want to have foster kids at all, which makes you wonder why he doesn't put his foot down to Joanne about this, if this is like her wanting to do it. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. And overall, he just seems like a jerk in most scenes, to the point where the moment he dies, you don't feel bad. If anything, you're glad that Chucky killed him. There's gonna be less negativity in this movie. Now, I will give credit where it's due, since Joanne does actually stand up for Andy on many occasions. It's only when Phil dies when she finally snaps and turns her back on Andy. Which just makes me feel worse for Andy, considering the fact that she was one of the few adults who properly supported him. Like, come on. That's gotta hurt. Though at least she has a reason to not like him, while Phil was not on board from the start. Now, I only draw on about how bad these characters were, because we were so close to getting proper development for them and actually having them be good characters. Like the first movie, this movie has a lot of cut deleted scenes. Though unlike the first movie where all those scenes are basically lost media, this movie has all of its deleted scenes archived because strangely enough, the deleted scenes were edited back into the movie when it reran on cable networks like Syfy back in the 90s. I have no idea why they did this, considering TV networks usually remove scenes to fit a broadcast length instead of adding scenes, but go wild. But some of these deleted scenes revolve around Phil and Joanne, either as extended scenes already in the movie, or as scenes never seen before. And honestly, I think these scenes are amazing and expand upon their characters a lot. We know why Phil and Joanne are foster parents. They want to adopt a kid of their own, but keep getting put on an indefinite waiting list. So as they wait, Joanne fosters kids, and a part of the reason why Phil doesn't really like it is because he's seen Joanne grow attached to their foster kids, which makes it sadder when they need to leave when they finally get adopted. He's sick of seeing his wife be heartbroken multiple times, but still decides to do it because he knows it makes her happy. There are even scenes where he explains to her that maybe he and Joanne are just unfit to raise Andy due to all the attention he needs that they simply can't provide him. Bits and pieces of this are in the final cut, however they're either trimmed down or in a way where it just makes Phil seem like a jerk. Like, these scenes provide so much better context to something like the kitchen rant scene that I mentioned earlier. These scenes seem small and insignificant, but stuff like Joanne asking Andy if he's okay after he sees his trigger on a huge truck goes a long way in making these characters likable and help make their eventual deaths hit harder. Why these scenes are cut, I will never know, since to this day, Child's Play 2 is the shortest Chucky movie, clocking in at 84 minutes, compared to the first movie's 87, the third at 90, the fourth at 100, and you get the idea. So it makes me wonder why this movie decided to cut all these scenes out, even if they were fully completed. This isn't something like the opening act, where originally it was gonna be a courtroom with Andy's mom and Ike Norris, that got cut for a budget reason. Like, that makes sense, they weren't even filmed, they were still in the script phase, but these scenes were filmed, and they were even edited back on TV broadcast. So it confuses me why they were cut out, and I agree with the people who played Phil and Joanne, who feel like the removal of these scenes ruined their characters, because in my opinion, it kinda did. Now, my only other comment with this movie is its pacing, mainly how it handles suspense. Now, I feel like the movie actually has really good pacing overall, way better than the first movie. However, while watching the movie, I did notice a trend that got very old fast and was very repetitive. Basically, its way of building up suspense or to have Chucky strike is to have a character walk into a room, have the music start getting really suspenseful and really good, have it build it up like, oh, where's Chucky? Is he here? Then have it die down as they go to attack, only for Chucky not to be there and everything is okay. And then they may be able to do it one more time, or they'll just have Chucky attack really immediately after. It almost ruins certain scenes for me, because any amount of suspense you have or fright is completely removed when they do a fake out, because the moment Chucky strikes again, you realize, oh yeah, you kind of saw it coming in a way. Not to mention the fact that, like, it's not even like the music can carry it, because it kind of just disappears and will stay gone until after Chucky attacks. Why would they do that? In a movie that is almost carried by its music, it does come across a bit underwhelming. And like, it happens a lot. Like, I don't know how much specifically, I might edit in the number of how many times when I go to check out the footage, but it happened way more than I thought it would, and if anything, I feel like they could have cut these scenes instead of just have the drag on. Like, you could have cut these scenes and then instead, I don't know, add Phil and Joanne scenes back in the movie if you're really that short on time. Like, it just seemed a bit lame to me, which kind of sucks, because the rest of this movie is really good. I know this seems like a really long list, but I swear it was only 2 cons, I promise. I'm just very passionate about these 2 cons. So, overall, Child's Play 2 is a pretty great flick. I would agree with me that this is probably the best movie in the series. Now, keep in mind, I've only seen the first 2, with the rest only being seen through kill counts as of right now, but considering the competition, I don't think I have much to worry about. However, even if my opinion does change in the future, and I think that, for example, Cult is the best movie, that still won't change the fact that this movie is still pretty good. Not as great as some make it out to be, but overall, still 8 or 9 out of 10. Well, seems like we're done with the Child's Play 2 review. Now on to 3. I just gotta find it first.